Do you ever have a craving for something sweet but don't want too much? Well, here's the solution. Chocolate chip cookies. To make these, you will need these ingredients. 2 1/4 cup flour, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 2 sticks of softened butter or margarine, 3/4 cup white sugar, 3/4 cup brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 2 large eggs, and 2 cups of chocolate chips or 1 bag. First, we need to preheat the oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, after you've done that, we need to wash hands and put up long hair. Always make sure to wash hands before cooking. Now, we need to mix together your flour and baking soda into a small bowl, then set aside for later use. Now we need to take 2 sticks of our softened butter, put it into a large bowl, and mix it with our white sugar, brown sugar, and vanilla. A good tip is to always make sure you're using the right type of measuring cups. So if you're using liquid, make sure you're not using dry, and if you're using dry, don't use liquid. Now that I have everything added in like this, I want to mix it around so the brown sugar isn't clumpy. Then you want to stir it around so it doesn't get too clumpy, but you want it to be creamy. Now I'm going to add in my vanilla. Another tip that I think is good is for when you add in your flour, you add in a little extra flour to make your cookies nice and fluffy. It's always nice to try. So now that I have my ingredients mixed together, I'm going to add in my 2 large eggs. I'm going to stir everything in till it gets nice and creamy. Another thing you can use for substitution of chocolate chips, you can use nuts, M&Ms, peanut butter chocolate chips, or even butterscotch chocolate chips to add in more flavoring. But I prefer chocolate chips. Now it should be starting to look something like this. It might look gross, but that's what it's supposed to look like right now. So now that I'm mixing this in, it's starting to get really, really creamy. Now I am going to gradually add in my flour mixture with the baking soda and flour. You want to add in very little at a time, so when you're mixing the flour, it doesn't all come out at once. I learned this from personal experience that if you stir too fast with flour in, it goes all over the place, and you want to make sure that doesn't happen. So as I'm stirring this, I put in a little. It's starting to get a little bit thicker as I stir, and that's a sign that it's starting to turn into dough. And here's something you want to make sure, that after you crack eggs, you want to make sure you wash your hands really good with soap and water, because eggs, they can contain salmonella, which is also known as food poisoning. You can get that if you touch the eggs, the raw eggs, with your hands, and then and it comes in contact with your mouth. It can also happen if you eat too much of the raw cookie dough after it's not baked. So now I'm going to add in a little more of my flour mixture. I'm going to continue to stir it. Notice I'm not going too fast so the flour doesn't go out of the bowl. Starting to become thicker and thicker as I stir. That's a good sign that it's becoming dough now. After I'm done adding in the flour mixture, I'm going to add in a little extra flour to make my cookies nice and fluffy. I always seem to like fluffy cookies than flat cookies, because otherwise they're harder to get off the pan and they're just hard to get off the pan. So I'm going to add in the rest of my flour mixture, and I'm going to take a spoon and just add in a little bit more flour. Now I'm going to stir it all up till all my flour mixture is stirred in. Then, after I have all of this mixed, I'm going to add in my chocolate chips, which is 2 cups of chocolate chips, or 1 bag of chocolate chips, which is 11.5 ounces. This is what it's starting to look like. It's not mixed in all the way, but it's almost dough. And it's becoming harder and harder to stir as you add everything in. Now that I have all my flour mixture in, you should have some dough that looks like this. Now that I have that mixed, I'm going to add in half my bag of chocolate chips so it doesn't get hard to mix in all at once. And I'm going to stir all that in. Now I'm going to add in the rest of my chocolate chips. You also have to make sure you're stirring slow when you're doing the chocolate chips too. Some of mine just went over the edge, but that's okay. All of us make mistakes. So, the oven is almost to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, so we will be ready to put these on an ungreased cookie sheet once we have all the chocolate chips mixed in. Now that I have the chocolate chips mixed in, I'm going to grab an ungreased cookie sheet. On my ungreased cookie sheet, I'm going to place 1 spoonful of cookie dough on. You want to make sure you're making like your spoonfuls the same size while you're putting them on the pan, because if you make them all different sizes, it can cook unevenly. So you might have 1 burnt cookie, which would be a really small one, then a raw one, which would be a really big cookie, not cooked enough. So you want to make sure you're making these nice and even. This dough looks really good right now, but I'm going to try so hard not to eat it. Now that the oven is preheated, we will be ready to put these in the oven to bake. And when you put these in the oven, you want to make sure they bake for about 9 to 11 minutes, or until the edges are golden brown. Now I'm going to set my timer for 9 minutes, and we'll see how these cookies turned out when they're done.